In the quiet town of Greenwood Hills, Connecticut, the reading of a will was supposed to be a simple affair. Instead, it became the first act in a chilling family drama of betrayal, greed, and a secret buried in a grave. This is the story of how a sister's unthinkable greed unraveled, leading to a shocking confession that would reopen a murder investigation and forever change the meaning of family. This is a story about the true cost of a $3 million betrayal. My grandmother, Rose, passed away last spring at the age of 92. She was a kind, loving woman who raised 4 of us grandchildren after our parents passed away far too young. She was our rock, our foundation. She left behind a modest estate, which she had always promised would be divided equally among her 4 grandchildren, my sister Veronica, my cousins Jasper and Nell, and me. We were all counting on it. I needed the money to buy my first house and pay off my student loans. Jasper was desperate for funds to pay for his daughter's ongoing medical treatments, and Nell was relying on her share to keep her small art studio from closing its doors for good. But when the lawyer, a man named Mr. Donovan, read the will, he announced that Grandma had changed everything just 3 weeks before her death. The entire $3 million estate was left to my sister Veronica. The rest of us received nothing but a few pieces of jewelry. My sister, who already had a thriving dental practice, a beautiful mansion, and a successful husband, simply smirked. Grandma knew I'd managed the money responsibly, she said, not even trying to hide her glee. The will felt wrong, a complete betrayal of the woman who had raised us. I knew in my gut that something was off. My grandmother had always been fair, and she would never have left the rest of us with nothing. I decided I had to do my own investigation. My first stop was Grandma's closest friend, Mrs. Gable, a sweet old lady who lived next door for 40 years. Her face went pale when I told her about the new will. "Your grandmother was terrified those last few weeks," she whispered. She kept saying Veronica was threatening her, but she wouldn't give me any details. She seemed so frightened. Next, I spoke to Grandma's housekeeper, a kind woman named Maria who had worked for our family for 15 years. Maria broke down crying. "Your sister, she came every day during those last weeks. She would lock herself in your grandmother's study for hours. I heard your grandmother crying sometimes. When I asked if she was okay, your sister would say they were just discussing family business." I contacted the lawyer who had drafted the new will. He seemed nervous when I pressed him. "Your grandmother seemed distressed when she came in," he admitted. "But she insisted this was what she wanted. Your sister was very persuasive about your grandmother's reasoning." The final piece of my puzzle came from Grandma's doctor. While reviewing her medical records, I discovered something shocking. Grandma had been prescribed a new anxiety medication for the first time in her life, just 4 weeks before she died. The prescription was filled the day after one of Veronica's visits. I had a clear picture of what had happened. Veronica had slowly isolated our grandmother, convincing her that Jasper was on drugs, that Nell was financially irresponsible, and that I was only visiting her for money. She had then threatened to cut off all contact if Grandma didn't change the will. With all the evidence in hand, I hired an attorney who specialized in elder abuse. The court battle lasted 8 long months. During the trial, the truth came out. Veronica had systematically manipulated Grandma, telling her lie after lie to turn her against us. The judge ruled in our favor, and Veronica was ordered to return every penny of the inheritance plus pay all our legal fees. It was a clear victory, but karma wasn't finished with her yet. During the inheritance case, the IRS had been watching Veronica's finances. They discovered she had been underreporting income from her dental practice for years. The inheritance money she'd spent on a new yacht and a vacation home had triggered an audit that uncovered over $800,000 in tax fraud. She was arrested, and her dental license was immediately revoked. The night after her arrest, I received a call from her husband, Michael. "She wants to see you," he said, his voice shaking. "She's in county jail, and she claims she has information about what really happened to your grandmother that night she died." My blood went cold. We had been told Grandma died peacefully in her sleep, a natural passing for a woman her age. There had been no autopsy, just a simple death certificate signed by the doctor. But now, with Michael's words echoing in my head, I felt that same chilling feeling of suspicion that had started this whole thing. I called Jasper and Nell, and while Jasper immediately said Veronica was just desperate, Nell urged me to go. "What if she isn't lying?" Nell asked. "What if there's something we missed?" I couldn't sleep that night. The next morning I drove to the county jail. The visiting room was cold and sterile. When they brought Veronica out, I barely recognized her. The confident, polished woman who had stolen our inheritance was gone. In her place was a person who looked 10 years older with hollow cheeks and tired, lifeless eyes. We sat across from each other, separated by reinforced glass. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I got right to the point. "You have information about Grandma's death. Start talking." Veronica's hands shook as she gripped the phone. "I need to tell someone. It's been eating me alive." She took a shuddering breath. "Grandma didn't die naturally. I helped her along." World seemed to tilt sideways. "What do you mean you helped her along?" "She was going to change the will back," Veronica whispered, tears streaming down her face. "After our last fight, she called her lawyer. She said she was having second thoughts. She was going to take everything away from me." My mouth went dry. "So what did you do?" "I went to see her that night. I told her I was sorry, that I wanted to make things right. She let me in, made tea like she always did. I brought something with me. Something I'd taken from my practice." "What did you bring?" "Propofol," she said, her voice cracking. "It's an anesthetic. In small doses, it just makes you sleepy. But in larger doses, it stops your breathing." I felt sick. "You put it in her tea." Veronica nodded, sobbing. She trusted me. She drank the whole cup while telling me how proud she was that I had come to apologize. I sat with her until her breathing got slower and slower and then stopped. I stared at my sister through the glass, feeling a rage so pure it was almost blinding. "You murdered her." I walked out of that jail and called the police. Detective Rodriguez, a middle-aged woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, listened to my story with a calm intensity. "This is a very serious allegation," she said. "Do you have any evidence besides your sister's confession?" I pulled out my phone. "I recorded it," I said. "I know it's probably not admissible in court, but it's a starting point." Detective Rodriguez's eyebrows raised. "That was smart thinking. We'll need to exhume your grandmother's body for an autopsy. Propofol can still be detected months after death if we know what to look for." Over the next few days, I spoke to everyone who had been in contact with Grandma. Her doctor told me she had complained of unusual fatigue and confusion during her last checkup. Mrs. Gable revealed that Grandma had mentioned feeling foggy after Veronica's visits. It painted a horrifying picture. Veronica had been slowly poisoning Grandma with small doses of propofol to make her more susceptible to manipulation. When that wasn't enough, when Grandma had decided to change the will back, Veronica had administered a fatal dose. The trial was devastating, but the most damning evidence came from Veronica's own dental practice. The police found that her controlled substance logs had been falsified with multiple vials of propofol unaccounted for. On the third day, I took the stand and looked Veronica in the eyes. She'd already stolen from our family, terrorized an elderly woman, and committed fraud. Murder was just the next step. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. The verdict came back, guilty of first-degree murder. Veronica collapsed in her chair, sobbing. The judge sentenced her to life in prison without parole. 3 months after the sentencing, Detective Rodriguez called me with an update. "We've uncovered a massive estate fraud operation," she said. "Your sister's cooperation was crucial in identifying the victims. Some of these families have been fighting legal battles for years without knowing their documents were forged." It was a small comfort, knowing that something good had come from her confession. But the real victory came on the anniversary of Grandma's death. Jasper, Nell, and I gathered at her grave. We had her headstone replaced with a beautiful granite monument, and spent the afternoon sharing happy memories. Jasper's daughter, now healthy thanks to the medical treatments the recovered inheritance had paid for, picked dandelions and placed them around the headstone. "Tell me about great-grandma again," she said. And we did. Before we left, Nell pulled out a manila envelope. I found these when I was cleaning out Grandma's house. Inside were 3 letters, one for each of us, in Grandma's familiar handwriting. Dated just a week before she died, my letter read, "My dearest granddaughter, I want you to know how proud I am of the woman you've become. I'm worried about your sister. She seems troubled. I've told her that everything will be divided equally, just as I promised, but she seems fixated on the idea that she deserves more. If anything happens to me, please fight for what's right." We looked at each other, tears streaming down our faces. She knew something was wrong, and she was still trying to protect us from the grave. It had taken almost 2 years, but justice had finally been served. The inheritance had been properly distributed, and most importantly, the truth about Grandma's death was known. We had honored her memory by fighting for what was right and by keeping our family together. As we drove away from the cemetery that evening, I felt something I hadn't experienced in over 3 years. Peace.